today we're going to talk about a very sensitive topic for a lot of people. We're going to talk about therapy, and we're going to talk about why I believe that therapy for most people actually does more harm than good. And I say this as someone who has been to therapy. So I'm going to start just by sharing some context because I think it's needed. I first went to therapy, or the only time I've been to therapy, I was around 25 years old. At the time, I was going through, you could say, a very difficult time in my life, which is strange because all things considered, on paper, everything was good. What do I mean by that? I had just graduated college. I got a very good paying job at Texas Instruments. I had a girlfriend at the time. Life was good. You'd say, like, what the fuck is going on? Why are you having a bad time? And looking back at it, so the thing that happened was that for the longest time, like when I was in college, essentially, I was working towards a singular focus. I was working to graduate, get my degree, get a good paying job, because that's ultimately how you measure if it's a good job or not, by how much you get paid. Get that job and then just move on with my life. But here I was, I found myself with the job, with the degree, with the girlfriend, and I was sitting by myself just thinking, what next? I have failed to plan for my next goal or what I was gonna do afterwards, after I achieved those things. And I did not handle that situation very well because unfortunately I allowed that to spill over into other areas of my life. It spilled over into my relationship and it led to that relationship ending. It spilled over into me enjoying the experience of being in a new city, in a new country essentially. And I really didn't adjust that well to Dallas. And it started to affect a lot of areas. I realized like, shit, I have basically no fucking hobbies. I don't know what the hell am I gonna do because now I had money and free time. And oh yeah, first world problems. I believe they are first world problems. Trust me, that's why I'm saying that I don't think therapy is good for most people. But yeah, there I was and I was like, fuck, what do I do now? And I found myself hating my current life despite having everything or a lot of things that people strive for. So what happens? I decide, or after some counsel, I decide to just go to therapy. Well, actually, no, before that, like I said, the situation spilled over into other areas and it led to my relationship ending as well. And that triggered a whole chain of events. And eventually I found myself in therapy. And it was here at therapy where I am discussing, because I was a bit hesitant to go to therapy, to be honest. And then when I was there, I'm talking to the therapist and he straight up asks me, like, by when do you want to be okay? Like, by when? And that was weird because it surprised me a bit because I was like, okay, so it's June, so-and-so. Then I was in my mind just doing math. So, okay, so if I can get back with my girlfriend by December or figure out like what I'm gonna do as far as, because I hated my job at the time as well, like just get a new job. By then, I think I'm gonna be all right. I gave him a set of conditions. And the first thing he shoots back with is, okay, so you're basically committing to be sad or depressed, whatever term you want to use, for the next 7 months, for the next 6 months. So from June up until December of that year. Don't ask me why I said December. At the time, it's just, I wasn't thinking, that's just what came to mind. But the way he phrased that to me just made so much fucking sense. It's like, do I really, like, do I want to be like this for the next 6 months? Because he then asked me, is that what you want? Like, do you want to be? Because then we can just see each other. We'll see each other 6 months from now. And I was like, fuck no. Like, I just want to sort this shit out. And he was like, okay. And then now we can get to work. And it's very simple. And that was like the first session. But I think about, because I have friends or I know people who've been to therapy who have been going to therapy for years and they're still healing. And I get it. Everyone's process is different, but there's this whole thing of some people use it as an excuse essentially to just be in a perpetual state of healing and never move past that point of yeah, of just like by when are you gonna get better? Essentially, that's the whole point of working on of therapy, of working on yourself and whatnot. Because really, therapists and like so, there's a few things. So one is now, in retrospect, what I think is a lot of people haven't worked on themselves enough to actually be able to make the most out of a session or the most out of going to therapy because they're not even aware of what their fucking issues are. And truthfully, you can literally, and this is the key to everything, you can program yourself to anything. You can believe everything. And it's like, think about it. When you were young, you most likely thought Santa Claus was real. And then you found out, whoops, big surprise, he's not real. And now you think about it, it's like, yeah, it makes sense. It doesn't make much sense for a fat man to be sliding down the chimney. But when you're young and you first learn that he isn't real, it's just like the truth is such a shock to you that you find it impossible to believe and you just dismiss it completely and think it has to be a lie. Why do I give that example? Because oftentimes, and I'll say this, because I was at that point, if I had to label myself as depressed, I would say I was. But now if you ask me if I could ever become depressed, I would say no. And the reason for that is truly because you can literally convince yourself of anything, good or bad. And I can tell you, when I was feeling like shit and when I was depressed, I was convinced that no one can help me. No one understands me. I used to talk about this a lot with my dad, even. And at the time, I would tell him like, I feel sad or whatever. And he would be like, oh, I can understand that you feel sad for a day, but that you feel sad every day, that doesn't make sense. And I would fight him on it, like, no, you don't understand. You don't understand how I feel. And I think to myself now, and it's just like, bro, stop being a bitch, essentially. Like, that's the truth. It's like, because it was just being so caught up in my own head that I was so convinced that no one knows how I'm feeling. No one understands me. Only I do. I'm the only one going through this. And it just becomes that thing where you literally, you convince yourself that you're in a shitty situation and that you're shit and that your life is shit. If that's what you believe, that's what's going to be true. But if you take the opposite approach, which is after a lot of work on myself that I decided to like, hey, why not do it the other way? I managed to realize that, yeah, you can literally convince yourself of anything. And another point that I wanted to make on why it's not helpful for a lot of people. So I made to circle back that point. So as a client, let's say, or a patient, whatever, if you haven't done the work on yourself enough to even be aware enough of what you're trying to fix, you're just going to a session with no end goal in mind. So no wonder people stay in therapy for 4 or 5 years and they're still fucking healing and they end up treating it like a fucking hobby, something to flex about, which FYI, it's not a flex to be perpetually healing. It is a flex to be working on yourself and looking to improve. But some people just use it as an excuse as if it was, oh, I have tennis class on Tuesdays, then I have my therapy sessions. Nah. That don't make it your personality to be broken. And then the other point is that, 2 more points. So the other is that therapists aren't necessarily incentivized to fix you because that's how they make money, obviously. And third is that a lot of times, most therapists haven't done the work themselves to be able to help you process your issues because they're dealing with their own shit. And it's fine because we're all human. So anyone who tells you that they don't deal with problems or deal with overthinking or, normal people problems, they're just lying to you. There's a way to manage them. Of course, some people manage them way better than others. But essentially, there are people who, the blind leading the blind. That's the short version of it. Which is why because like I said, I have friends and I sometimes ask them what they do and just to try and get a different perspective because, hey, maybe my experience was, I don't know, it was pretty good, I would say. I only had like 5, 6 sessions, whatever. think it helped me. But if you were to tell me to go back now, I wouldn't. I think it's just a matter of taking accountability. That's also another thing that a lot of therapists don't encourage, because it becomes like an echo chamber of you're just talking about your problems, but there's never any enforced accountability of like, hey, yeah, you're in a shitty situation, but you had a part to play in this as well. You brought this on yourself to a certain extent. Because it's always about blaming external people or external circumstances. No, a lot of the times you fucked up. You got yourself into this situation, right? If you get like fucking overweight and you're sick, it's like, that didn't happen overnight. So it's just things that are missing from the current, process or whatever. So that's been my experience, at least. And like I said, I know people who've been, and I know more people who go to therapy, who are still going to therapy, than people that went to therapy and are all good and it made a massive change in their lives. Because usually the people who go to therapy and close that cycle and make improvements in their life are people who are gonna, they're committed to self-improvement, they're self-aware, they're very aware of their flaws and how to improve them, analyze themselves, and are constantly looking for ways to get feedback and become better. So I think that was gonna happen regardless. But for the rest of the people, it ends up just being, like I said, an echo chamber. So I know it's an unpopular opinion, but it's been my experience. And I like to talk about things that I've experienced myself. I wouldn't be talking about this if I had not gone through it. Because, yeah, it is a thing. So, yeah. That's the video for today. Let me know what you think. If you agree, disagree, if you've been to therapy, what's your experience? If you haven't been, or if you have any more specific questions, I just gave like a TLDR, to be honest, but feel free to share your thoughts, agree or disagree, questions. Yeah, looking forward to hearing them. So yeah, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching if you made it this far, and I'll catch you on the next one.